One of the saddest moments I can recall in my life was when I was at the age of 6. My sister and I was pulling up a pull-up bar on the side of the door frame, and since I needed to tighten it both ways, I told my sister to hold it for me for a while. But instead, she dropped it on her head and she started bleeding. She started sobbing and sobbing. And you know the feeling when you hurt your sibling and you're frantically apologizing before your mom finds out? Yep, that's how I felt like. But the plan failed and my mom came and said, "You're an older sister. You're supposed to protect your little sister, not harm her." And that sentence really stung. But over time, I kept reminding myself that it wasn't my fault. It was just an accident instead. But that sadness and guilt just kept building up. Sometimes life isn't easy, and I get that. It isn't really fun either. But I don't think that's the point. Sadness is something that is necessary and something that we need. It's something that we must experience in order to learn and move on. It breaks us into pieces that we never knew existed and leaves us hanging, wondering how to be whole again. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Let me define the term sadness. According to American Psychology Association, sadness is an emotional state of unhappiness, ranging in intensity from mild to extreme, and is usually aroused by the loss of something highly valued. But there are two types of sadness in this context: major depressive symptom and anhedonia, which is an adjective of sad. The World Health Organization reports that an estimated 3.8% of the population experiences depression, 5% of adults, and 5.7% adults older than the age of 60. And that's approximately 280 million people in the world that have depression. The question is then, why is this sadness beneficial in our lives if we feel all these examples of pain? And if we feel all these examples of pain, then how can we cope with it? Well, to answer that, the first step is to allow sadness in our heart. Sadness can destroy our ego and it can take away every happy moment in our life. But sometimes we just need to let it have its way. Mark Brackett, PhD, founding director of Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, states that when we ignore our feelings or suppress them, they only become stronger. And that's exactly how I felt. So I learned that you have to let sadness in so we can learn how to define our greatest and strongest moments. An example of this would be the term 幸福. Russell, a journalist focusing on the research of happiness, notes, there is no equivalent English term for the Chinese idea of 幸福. The term expresses the notion that a good life may contain pain and difficulty, but as well as happiness and joy. So being able to allow sadness and grief can help us learn to start over, so that we won't have to spend our lives running away from them. So I was talking about happiness and joy, but in comparison, people think that some other emotions are easier to feel, like happiness, or at least more beneficial than sadness. People say all the other emotions serve a purpose in life and are an everyday necessity. So to expand on that, one day I questioned my sister and asked, what if this emotion, sadness, wasn't in our life? Well, she said, oh, if this emotion, sadness, wasn't in our life, then we wouldn't have any more sadness, and we would have more happiness. But that's not true. According to Lamas T., the Studios of Science Direct, he quotes that several virtues of sadness have been identified, including serving as a protective mechanism from harmful situations, but as means of expressing love, compassion, and care. Meaning that we need this sadness to enhance and deepen our experience with happiness. We will never have enough happiness or sadness because they cancel each other out. Nanin Ferdella, a licensed psychologist, says, we can't fully appreciate the moments of joy and gratitude in our life that brings happiness into our lives without sadness. People often have a superficial sense of everything's okay, but it's okay if it's not. So, in short, it's necessary to have sadness in our lives no matter what circumstances we face. Sadness is often seen as a negative emotion, but we have to change that. You can do that by knowing that and saying sadness takes time. It takes a lot of courage to accept it too. So just allowing it and knowing it's beneficial for you can make a big difference in your life. Sometimes it won't be okay, so let it. Sometimes it will be. So embrace it and enjoy it because sadness will always be to your rescue.